Get ready for the frequency. This is 1Trance podcast, where trance meets you with Reboot Quantum Solar.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to 1Trance podcast. Today, we are joined by an amazing producer out of Australia. He's an up-and-coming trance producer and DJ originally from Sydney. He specializes in uplifting trance, vocal trance, and progressive trance with modern energy, often blending emotional melodies, driving bass lines, and euphoric builds. While not yet a mainstream global headliner, he's built a solid reputation within the underground and online trance community, especially among fans of progressive and euphoric trance styles.
His music has gained a lot of traction in the global trance scene through releases on respected labels such as Extrema Global Music, Renee Blazing Records, Redux Recordings, and Progressive Vibes. His sounds is sitting somewhere between classical uplifting trance and the more melodic progressive styles, often compared by listeners like artists like coming from Ajuna Beats or FSOE.
Some of these notable tracks include Into the Dream and The Descent, which were released in November of last year, 2025, Till the End and The Escape, which were released in September last year as well. These tracks have appeared on Beatport charts, with some reaching top 10 positions, and they receive regular plays on trance radio shows on AH.FM, where he actually hosts a show called Epiphany.
He also maintains a pretty active online presence with profiles on SoundCloud, Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, Beatport, and almost every place you can think of. His style is leaning towards, as I said before, classical uplifting elements updated with contemporary production, appealing to fans and artists in the progressive and vocal trance realms. As a relatively new face in the scene, he continues to build a momentum through consistency and radio support.
He represents the new wave of trance producers who are building careers without relying only on the major labels, the backing of those labels. His music leans into emotion and storytelling, which is key in today's trance revival. He is part of a generation keeping the trance alive in a post-EDM boom era where authenticity matters more than hype.
Welcome to 1Trance podcast, Alex Speckmann.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thank
welcome.
You. Great to be here. Thank you for that
The
introduction.
floor is yours.
Floor is mine. All righty. Well, lovely to see you guys. I thought you were going to ask me questions.
We are. All right. So you're fairly new to the trance scene, and you're from Australia, Sydney, as we mentioned. What first drew you to trance music growing up, in that location in Sydney? And was there a specific track, artist, or moment that made you decide, hey, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to start doing?
Yeah, look, I think it probably started back in the rave scene in Sydney in the sort of early 2000s. I think it wasn't initially uplifting trance at that point that I was listening to. It was more happy hardcore, hard styles and things like that. I was a bit younger. And I suppose that's where it started. That's where the partying started. And then as I got a bit older, you get over that sort of harder, faster stuff and sort of drifted more to trance. I think my sort of first introduction to trance was probably Tiesto, Silence, Adagio, the strings and things like that. In terms of what got me into producing, I think, look, I've always done music since I was younger, but I've always just been doing something different. I used to DJ a bit of a happy hardcore. Then I DJ'd house and techno and stuff when that got big in Sydney. And then I had a break for a while. It was actually Giuseppe Ottaviani's masterclass that came out during the pandemic. When that came out, and I thought, well, you know what? Why not? We're all sitting at home. I'm not sure what you guys were like, but we're all in lockdown in Sydney, Australia. So I thought I may as well spend that time learning to produce, and then sort of mucked around with it for a while. And then I think it was when I bumped into some friends, Kevin Cornine, and then later on Danny Quantum Solar on the podcast here, that I sort of started taking it more seriously and putting the hours in.
Yeah, that actually goes along with the next question, because like I said, you went through, did a master class, during those lockdown times, and you met with some people so you started growing your your producing career per se, but was there a specific moment that you're like, something, this could be something that I can actually do and be serious about and continue?
Yeah, I suppose there was. As I mentioned, the Giuseppe Ottaviani masterclass came out, and I was trying to make music, and I was really bad for a really long time. It's a slog, right? It takes a while to get good. And I think there was some real ups and downs. There were some times where I was, almost gonna sort of call it quits. But then I think what was really good is there was a community within the Giuseppe Ottaviani masterclass. And after that website closed, we moved it onto Discord, and we kept in touch with people like Kevin Cornoy. I was saying Ads, which is mostly Cloudy, is his producing name, was very active there as well. And I think it was that support network, right, where we would send each other things that we were working on, give each other feedback, all noting each other's progress. I think if you're going on your own, it's pretty easy to lose momentum and lose motivation, but having people that push you along is really good. And we actually had a session with Dennis Shepard where he came on to the masterclass,
Wow.
gave us some tips and tricks. Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was organized by Adrian, mostly Cloudy, who's sort of quite connected with Dennis Shepard. And he listened to some of our tracks and gave feedback. And I played my track Eternity, which ended up getting released on Progressive Vibes. And he listened to that and he's like, you know what, this is great. You can get this signed. So I think for me, that was the way where I'm like, oh, okay, I think I'm there finally.
You actually, like I said, you actually had that class, and like a lot of people have the class and they try until something clicks. But you seems like you had a master class, you had some guests coming in, listen to your track, and from that moment, it's like, wow, yeah, you got that track signed on Progressive, and boom. So, but during these times, a lot of producers, and Danny knows this as well, it's hard to get into the scene before you get bigger, more famous. What kept you going before anyone was listening to you in the beginning? What was that drive?
Yeah, I suppose a few things. One is that community I was talking about, people pushing each other on, and motivating each other, making sure we were still pushing on. I think equally, I don't know, I've just got the bug. I need to make music. I've got that creative itch. I need to keep pushing on. I've always I played piano, and I played piano for a long time. I'm always coming up with melodies and things like that. And I think every time I come up with a melody, I'm like, I have to make this into a track. I've got to finish it off. As I mentioned, a lot of it was really bad for a really long time, but it was just pushing on, feeling the need that I had to get this stuff out there, because I knew that I think once the production caught up, that they'd be good tracks that people would connect with.
So is it safe to say that you come from a musical family then?
Yeah, sort of. I mean, my dad was very musical. My dad's played guitar. He was an old sort of hippie 60s, 70s rocker dude. I suppose there's music in my family. I started playing piano when I was like 6. It was just at a school thing, and they were like, "He's pretty good." Getting lessons, and I sort of kept doing lessons from them. And I've always done music. I sort of did music at high school and things like that. Yeah, I've had sort of the full classical education, I suppose you could say. So for me, music's always been a part of my life.
Awesome. All right, back to Danny.
I want to talk to you a bit about the production and the creativity. When you produce, do you produce with people in mind, or is it the dance floor, or do you just do whatever comes to your mind?
Yeah, it's a good question. I suppose it's probably the dance floor. I'd say. I think I mentioned before I went to raves when I was younger, and anyone that's been to something like that, that feeling when you're there, you're at the festival, at the rave, in the warehouse, whatever. Smoke machines going, lasers everywhere, awesome tune, and you're just there in the vibe, right? And that's what trance is to me. It's trying to capture that
Yeah.
feeling. So when I'm producing, I guess I'm trying to recapture that, and for that, I don't sort of progress with the track until I feel like I've got something that is creating that feeling and capturing that vibe. So I think that's probably what I'm going for when I'm making music.
Yeah, so you're definitely going for that not clubby sound, but that clubby feel.
Yeah.
When you produce. It's in your style. Yeah. Can you walk us through your production setup and workflow? How is your approach to creating a track?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of production setup, I'm not sure if you mean like equipment that I use. I've got Ableton, which I use, and it's mostly VSTs, Spire, Serum, Silence, the usual suspects. In terms of the in terms of the process, it always starts with melody. For me, everything starts with melody. I come up with a lot of melodies, and I like to, when I come up with a melody that I think I believe in, I'm rushing to the piano or rushing to the studio, jotting it down, putting it there. And then I think I spend a long time working on that core idea, both in terms of perfecting the melody, but also the sound design around it, making sure I've got the right sounds, I've got the right vibe. I'm producing the drop first, always. I'm always making sure that I've got the drop hitting exactly how I want, well, more or less how I want before I sort of build the track out. And if I can't get the drop sounding right for how I hear the melody, then I won't make the track. And I've passed on a lot of really good melodies in the past, but I've just not been able to make it sort of feel the way I want.
Yeah.
And I think once I've got that drop down, I'm building the track out from there. I'm going back to the intro and building that through to the break into the drop. But everything revolves around the drop in my production.
Has your involvement, or has your creativity, or the way you work changed over the last couple of years as you progressed in learning more, or are you still stuck with the way you always done, starting with the melody and so on? Or did you start differently back then?
It's always been the same. So I've always started with the melody. I think that's the main thing for me. Like for me, with trance music, what stands out is the melody. What I'm listening for is the melody. The approach in that sort of broader sense hasn't changed since I've started. I've actually tried different approaches, like starting with the intro and building the track out from there, because I know a lot of people do that. I've tried that quite a few times. It doesn't work for me.
No,
So I kind of stick to what comes easy.
you found your way that works.
I found my way that works exactly right. So the way I see it, why try and change things or complicate things? If something's easy, if there's an easy approach, then that's probably a sign that it's the right approach, right? So
Yeah, and it has worked for you. You have had releases on labels, as we said in the intro, Extrema Global, Blazing, and Redux. How do you choose when you're finished with a track? How do you choose which label to send your tracks to? Because I know from my own experience, it can be a jungle out there, what does hit your style and all that stuff. How do you go about that?
yeah, look, I think as I'm working on a track, I'm trying to think about what label it aligns to in terms of the feel, and basically, as you mentioned before, I've signed on Extrema, a Blazing, a Redux. I think I've found some labels that are similar to my sound, and I spend a lot of time researching and looking at labels. And basically, as I'm making the track, I'm like, if this feels like an Extrema track, or if this feels like an Blazing track, then I'll sort of note that to myself, and then when it's finished, I'll send it off to the label and hope that they sign it. But I'm as I'm making the track, I'm trying to figure out which label this track fits in terms of its sound.
So you're also doing a kind of research and listening to the label's music catalog
Yeah,
before you send stuff
absolutely.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, and that I spend a lot of time doing that. I probably spend more time on that than most people. I know the labels really well. I listen to, I've got a whole bunch of labels that I like, and I listen to almost every single release. Even if I don't listen to the full track, I'm always trying to keep on top of it just to hear what kind of music they're releasing, see what direction they're going. You can see sort of the trends. They'll sometimes take a different
Yeah.
turn. Yeah.
And the reason I'm asking like that is because I could imagine that a lot of labels are getting a lot of demos that certainly not are for their category, if you can say that. So it helps for you as a producer to do your research on the different labels, so
Yeah,
you don't get
absolutely.
like a
Yeah.
thousand no's.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly right. Exactly right. I probably learned that early on, right, where I was sending demos to labels that I really shouldn't have. I was sending stuff to FSOE and Nocturnal Nights when it was A, not the right style, and B, the quality was nowhere near good enough. So I think you
Yeah.
kind of learn, right? You learn as you go. But to your point, yeah, it takes time to sign a track, right? You finish a track and then you think you're done, but you've got to send it to labels. Some of them take a few weeks to come back. They say no, then you send it to the next one, a few more weeks, they might say no. And then eventually someone says yes, and then the contract takes a week or two, and then release date takes a few months.
By the way, me and Alex are producing a track, and future sequence has been 4 weeks now on replying on that demo hint. Wink, wink.
If that's but I think that's why it's important to sort of have your labels planned from the beginning, because if you can land it in the first one, then you save yourself a lot of time and hassle.
Yeah. So tracks like I want to talk about a bit of your tracks and your style. Tracks like Into the Dreams and Till the End is very strong, emotional, and euphoric at the same time. What inspires your melodies? Do you go on your emotion, or is it the atmosphere, or what is it that drives the melodies in you?
Yeah, interesting question. So my best ideas kind of just come to me. I'm not really looking for it. It's usually after I've been listening to the music. Maybe I spent an hour or so listening to some mixes from people, and then I'll go off. And it's usually when I'm doing something really mundane. I'm hanging the washing or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
I don't know, just kind of when so your mind switches off, and all of a sudden something kind of clicks. Exactly, something comes in, and then, as I said, running to the studio and jotting it down. So I think, yeah, I'm not, the way I do music, I'm not really searching for it. It finds me, if that makes sense. And then when I'm making the track, I try and let it guide me. I sort of learned not to try and force the music in a certain
Yeah.
direction I want to take it. I kind of let it sort of take me where it wants to go, just through experimentation, mucking around. And most tracks end up coming out slightly different to what I've sort of been aiming
So
for. But I guess
yeah,
ultimately,
sorry.
I am going for that vibe, right? That euphoric sort of hands in the air, sort of feeling that you get from trance, right?
Yeah. How do you maybe that's a hard question to ask, but how do you balance that energy in your tracks with that emotion? Is it just coming to you, or do you have a certain recipe you're going for?
So I think, again, it all centers around the drop, right? So I've got the melody, I've got the idea, I build the drop, I make sure that's as energetic as I can get it while still fitting the melody and the vibe of it. And I think I build everything else around that. So in terms of, sort of managing the energy, the intro is kind of setting the scene where I'm borrowing elements from elsewhere in the track just to kind of keep it all familiar. And I suppose just having restraint in terms of the earlier parts of the production, not going too hard in the intro and making sure that the break really pulls back. And then with the build, again, not getting too big with the build, because ultimately you want the drop to be the thing that hits the hardest. So I think just making sure that you're holding everything else back as much as you need to make sure that the drop sort of shines in the track.
All right, thank you. I will let you over to Reboot.
Thank you.
And I'm going to plug it in since you guys are talking about tracks and collaborations and all that good stuff. I'm going to put an unshameful plug in that I have a track coming out called Lusitania this Friday, the 10th of April on Aros Music. So there you go, guys.
And I've
The
heard it.
trance scene.
Good.
I'm sorry?
That I've heard it and it's good.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Definitely.
So the trance scene, what is your perspective on the current state of trance? Are we in a revival? Are we in an evolution? Or is it something new that's rising up?
I think a bit of everything is the answer to that question. I think that you've got that revival, that sort of 90s or early 2000s sound, that classic trance sound that's really come back. You've got Tiesto, who's come back to the scene, obviously. You've got a lot of other artists who are maybe more in sort of techno and progressive house who are now coming to trance again with that whole rebirth of the original sound. At the same time, I think, you've got the harder tech trance sort of feel. You've got a lot of techno coming into the scene as well. And then you've also just got sort of the standard, I don't know, standard, but the kind of core uplifting trance that we've heard for the last 10 years, which is still there. So I think it's kind of all of it is there if you want it. It's very kind of fractured at the moment. And depending on whatever you want, you can sort of find that, which I think is great, because you've got options in terms of the style of trance you can listen to.
So you feel like the themes are mixing up, techno trance, hard techno, hard trance, they're all mixing together with the classic sounds as well, kind of thing. It's all a mashup.
Yeah, I think so. It's a mashup, and it's all over the place. And you hear producers from one track to the next. They'll go from a modern sound to a more classic sound to a more techie sound. I think those limitations that there used to be on an artist or on a particular sort of scene or a sound seems to have broken down, and it's just kind of a real mashup, which I think is really good.
I'm going to mention somebody. Go on Facebook, go to Darren Porter's page on Facebook, and listen to the clip of the track that he's working on. It is that old schoolish trance, uplifting trance sound that he's coming out with the track. So I'm going to plug him in on here. Darren Porter from Reason to Rise Music. We'll go to his Facebook, listen to the clip that he posted yesterday, because it is wow. Do you think that trance, like I said, this kind of goes together with the last question. Do you think that trance is returning to a more melodic direction or becoming more tech driven, harder, as we mentioned? What is your in your business of producing? I know you mentioned about everything being mashed up, but do you see a more like clear direction where trance itself is being driven to?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of answered it before, and then I think it's going in different directions at the same time. You know, I think there is that more sort of techie or more sort of old school 90s, early 2000s sound, which is less melodic, less euphoric, more sort of more about the vibe and the groove, if that makes sense, sort of more sort of simple and repetitive melodies and things like that. At the same time, you've still got some artists who are holding on to the more sort of standard euphoric trance that we've gotten used to over the last 10 years. I kind of feel, you know, if you're putting the techie side to the side, it's kind of split up in two. You've got the sort of standard uplifting that's sort of still going on, and then you've got those people who have sort of gone back to that older sound.
Social media. In today's world, in 2026, how important is social media and branding to producers and DJ?
I think how important it is depends what you want to do with it, really. If you're really trying to push yourself, grow your brand, get bigger gigs, then I think it's super important, right? Because that's how you're getting attention. That's how you're getting noticed. On the flip side, if you're perhaps someone that just wants to produce music, you're not too concerned around sort of growing a massive fan base or getting big gigs, then perhaps it's not quite as important. Because I mean, if you're making still important, but not as important. If you're making great music and you're signing to good labels, people are gonna find you anyway, and you're just gonna grow naturally. I mean, it might happen a bit more slowly, but you're still gonna sort of grow a real fan base, as opposed to people who are really pushing the socials and trying to get out.
What advice would you give to other aspiring producers, that are located in a smaller and more remote scene, such as Australia? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, look, I mean, it is a bit tough being in sort of Sydney, away from the vibe. I often look at, you know, people in either in Europe or maybe in Tokyo and Japan as a scene there, and also certain places in America that, you know, they're around the clubs, they're around all the DJs, they're around all the other producers. I sort of see that, and I get a bit jealous and a bit sad that I can't I can't get involved in that. So look, I mean, it is what it is, right? You've got to deal with it. Either you pack up and you move, or you sort of stay where you are and carry on with it. But I guess what I'd say is that there's, you know, it's a digital age, right? There's so many people that you can connect with online like this right now. You know, there's social media. You can talk to people. You can send your music to the labels really easily and get it out there. So I think if you want to do it and you're ready to push through the few years it takes of making rubbish music before you actually get there, then just do it. What have you got to lose? You don't have to be the next Tiesto or the next Armin van Buuren, right? You just get out there, make the music. If you enjoy it and you're there for the journey, then give it a shot.
And how would you describe, real quick, how would you describe the trance scene in Sydney or in Australia overall?
Yeah. So the trance scene, there isn't a huge scene here, in all honesty. The club scene in Sydney in general's taken a turn for the worst over the last 10 or so years. They had certain lockout laws that prevented the clubs from opening up after a certain time. We do have a subculture event down in Melbourne, which I've never actually gotten to, but I'd like to. Obviously, we have some of the bigger shows here as well. I think in Sydney it's a lot harder. You get a lot more of the hard styles, and the hard trance. You know, things like Ben Nicky, Marlowe. It's that kind of vibe in Australia. We do still get artists that tour, like, you know, Alex Morph and Ali and Filler and whatnot. But the scene certainly isn't as big as the harder stuff.
As an emerging trance producer, what has been some of the biggest hurdles you have faced in the trance community? Has it been standing out or getting your music distributed or staying inspired for that matter? And how have you maybe overcome any of those problems?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is cutting through the noise, right? And there's so many producers out there at the moment. There's so many people making so much music. It's almost sort of it's a very saturated market, right? So I think that the biggest challenge is trying to get noticed, right? Trying to get your music heard. You put all this time and effort into a track, you get it signed, you get all excited, and then it's on the Beatport chart for a few days, and then sort of disappears, and that's it. So That's the hardest thing, right? When you think you've got a really good track and it just doesn't land the way you do. But you just got to keep pushing, right? Because then you never know the next one. I might do really well. Like my track Till the End, for example, did really well, which was interesting. I was actually off that track as I was finishing, and I didn't like it very much. I didn't think it could do very well. I was really off it. I almost didn't finish it, but sent it off and it did well. So I think you just got to push through those setbacks and know that eventually it'll turn around.
So, Alex, how important has platforms like SoundCloud and Spotify, etc., been for you? Do you have to work a lot to get growth?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So I've always signed my tracks to labels rather than releasing them on my own. Uh, I work full time. I've got kids. I don't have time to do the self promotion, right? So I really like leaning on the label framework where you sort of get you get exposure through the brand and through the network that they already have. In terms of SoundCloud, I mean, obviously Spotify is massive, right? Spotify is huge. Some of my tracks, like Till the End, for example, have landed on Spotify playlists, which has been massive because that's driven the streams. I think Till the End is at almost 20,000 streams now. So I mean, they're super
Amazing.
important, especially for me in Sydney, where I can't play my music out very much because there's not much of a scene here. Everything relies on the platforms, right? In terms of SoundCloud, I think I don't use SoundCloud a lot, but what I do is I upload my monthly sets on After Hours FM there, and I'm starting to build that up now. People are starting to sort of follow that and listen to every track and share it. So it is important, and they're all good. They're all good tools, and they're all good platforms.
They all give you something in a different way.
Correct. That's right. Yeah, they
Yeah,
all do something different, but I think together they all combine it and they all work out.
definitely.
Beatport's great for getting DJs, obviously, downloading your tracks and playing them. The charts are a lot of fun because as your tracks climbing the chart, you can take a screenshot and post it on Instagram. And then Spotify obviously is important because that's where most people listen to them.
All right. What's your long-term vision? Do you see yourself staying in the trance, or do you want to explore other genres?
Yeah, I'll always stick to trance because I just love the melodies, right? I love the uplifting melodies, so I think I'll always do that. That said, I do want to explore other areas. I do really like the techie, harder side of trance, so I'm really keen to push into that. I've just got to force myself a bit more to do it. I keep looking back into what comes easy and making uplifters. But Danny, Quantum Solar, you do a good job of trying to trying to push me into the harder side.
We
I haven't.
we got a lot of work on the plate at the moment for some heavy stuff, you and I.
Yeah, we do, we do. So stay tuned. They'll be signed and released. Yeah. And I'm also enjoying the classic sound. The more classic sound of trance that's come back. I've actually got a track that I'm finishing up right now, and hopefully start sending to labels next week, which is going back a bit more to that classic sound. So I'm just kind of experimenting with everything at the moment. I think you don't need to limit yourself to one sound or
But
two
it's
sounds.
it's also more allowed nowadays, as you were in on it earlier. Like you're not that set in as an artist as this is your sound. This is the only thing you can do. Otherwise, you have to make a new alias or whatever. Today, you can do whatever you feel like. If it's good, people will listen.
Exactly, exactly. So
Exactly. Yeah.
take advantage, right? And that's why I'm trying to do it now early as well. I think before I get pigeonholed into a particular sound, just make as many different ideas as I can, and then people are used to it.
All right. So you mentioned that you host on After Hours FM. I do as well. Hosting a show called Ilphony and delivering guest mixes as well. How does curating a radio show or a mix differ from producing your own tracks?
I think in some respects it's similar in that it's a bit of a journey, with a track you're taking the listener on a journey. And equally, when you're putting a mix together, you're taking them on a journey as well. I think what differs obviously is when you're putting a mix together, you're grabbing other people's music. So I think what I'm trying to do every month on Euphony is play the most recent releases that I like. Obviously I play my own tracks when they're released, but I'm also trying to sort of showcase my style in terms of the music that I like to play every month, and that's a combination of uplifting trance, but also tech trance. I generally finish pretty heavy, play sort of techno trance, or even sometimes just straight up techno. And then hopefully bring that vibe into my productions at some stage as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Now we know from talking to you that you've done some DJ gigs out there, and even though it's been a while, as you mentioned, what's the biggest difference to you producing versus playing live, and which one do you prefer?
I think with producing, you can take your time to get it right. There's no one there listening to you or watching you as you're doing it. Playing live, you're going on instinct. You're trying to read the crowd, and you're hoping that it all works out. You can't. There's nowhere to hide when you're playing live, right? You just
Absolutely.
you're in the moment. You're in the moment. And I've got it very wrong on the dance floor before, and that's that's an interesting feeling. I think that's the biggest difference, right? One of them, it's the sort of a live interaction with the crowd, which is a lot of fun when it goes right, and obviously comes with risk at that, but that's what makes it enjoyable. In terms of which I prefer, I do prefer producing. I'm in it sort of more for the music and the creativity, and I love putting a track together, releasing that out into the world, and then people enjoying it and reaching out, and vibing to it.
Awesome. So outside of music, though, what hobbies or experiences recharge your creativity, and do any of those things sneak into your productions?
So yeah, in terms of things that recharge my creativity, obviously I'm getting a bit older now. I enjoy going for walks, getting out into nature, getting into the park, getting into the
Yeah, I
bush.
see the gray hair coming on right there. No, it's playing.
Some falling out, not quite as far as Daddy, but I'm on the way. But yeah, just getting out of the house, just getting inspiration from the world somewhere, and I think taking a break as well. We all live busy lives. I mentioned before I've got kids and work, and I think when you're under the pump, it can be hard to be creative. So I think just taking that break to get out and cleanse your mind and clear your mind, and hoping that then brings something to you in terms of things that influence my music. One thing I'm really interested is space, or the cosmos, you could say. I watch a lot of documentaries on sort of space, and I suppose in some respects that kind of does influence my production. That really sort of big epic sort of vibe. So I do kind of, sometimes I like to visualize my music sometimes, if that makes sense. So sometimes I'll just jump online. I'll look at pictures of galaxies and things like that, and just sort of try and get some kind of spark happening.
All right, Alex, we are gonna do something that we always do here with our guests. It's called the rapid fire round. It's 6 questions, 1 answer.
Yeah.
So no thinking, just the first thing that pops into your head, all right?
Let's
I
go.
will start out, and then Reboot will take the next one, and so forth. All right.
This is the quick fire round.
Favorite track, the trance track of all time?
Amsterdam Smith and Pledger remix.
Dream label to release in the future.
I'm going to go with 2. I'm going to cheat. It's going to be FSOE and Subculture.
Favorite synth?
Spire.
Okay. If you could remix any classic track, which one would be?
I suppose I'd have to do Amsterdam by Luminary as well, but I'd be scared to do it because the Smith and Pledger remix is a classic.
All right. If you're out for a DJ gig, is it a sunrise or a closing set?
Probably a closing set. Don't know if I could stay awake till sunrise these days.
And if you had the chance to headline a festival, which one would you love to headline?
That's a tough one. There's a few. Culture in Melbourne will probably be the one. And if I could throw another one in there, it'd be the Unconscious Festival in Thailand. That's quite close to me, and I think goes for a few days. And that'd be a lot of fun as well.
Nice. So you're staying more on your side of the world for headlining.
Stay more on my side of the world because that's what I know. Not to say that I would have loved to play at a festival in Europe at some stage. Of course I would, but I think at this stage aiming for local.
Nice. Now, Alex, where do you see yourself heading next through like your Alex Speckmann artist sound? Are you heading more vocal driven, progressive, or are you trying something? I know we've been in on it before, but where is Alex Speckmann going?
Where's Alex Speckmann going? Good question. Alex is figuring it out as he goes, I suppose, if I'm completely honest. But look, I am trying to do some more vocal music. So I've got a track at the moment with my mate Kevin Cornine, another producer, SM92. We're collaborating with Sinead McCarthy. It's not yet finished, but we're working on that. I'm hoping to collaborate with some other artists as well. We're speaking to Ren Fay through her Phasey 2.
Yeah, I was just about to ask. Do you have anything with Ren Fay?
I'm waiting. She's busy, and I think hopefully she gets to my vocals soon. So I've got something built, and hopefully that comes out as well. But I'm keen to do some more vocal trance. I'm also keen to get into the techie side as well. So I'll still keep doing uplifting, but they're the two sort of other directions I'm looking to explore.
Nice. So, you have any final words for the viewer that you want to say?
Not a lot. Just thanks for your support, everyone that listens to my music and tunes into my show. Epiphany is my show on After Hours FM. It's on every fourth Saturday of the month at 1 p.m. CET. And I've got a bunch of releases coming out soon. Actually signed a contract just this morning with UMount, a buddy of mine who also releases on Extremer as well. We did a collaboration together, which has just been signed to Synchronize Music. So keep an eye out for that. And more to come in the future, including some collaborations with Danny as well.
Nice. Tell our viewers where they can find you on the social media.
Sure. So I'm on Instagram. Just look up Alex Speckmann. I don't know the actual link, but look up Alex Speckmann. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Spotify. I'm on SoundCloud. I'm also on TikTok as well. So if you just search Alex Speckmann, you should bring it up, and there should be a link from one site to all the others as well.
Nice. So, Alex, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us. It's been an amazing conversation, an amazing interview. The best of luck for all your releases that you mentioned that you have, that you're working with, that you have coming out. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow, subscribe, and share it with your fellow trance lovers.
And guys, until next time, again, thank you, Alex. Thank you, Danny. Until next time, this is 1Trance Podcast, where trance meets you.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.
Thank you for watching and listening to the 1Trance Podcast. Do you have any questions you would like to have answered? Let us know. Take care and see you next time. 1Trance.